We are starving, we are golden, we are broken-hearted, and we got to get ourselves back to the garden.
I wanted to share with you a special recipe that I found in one of my favorite books here, James Peterson book on vegetables. And he's got a really good recipe in here for raw chipotle tomatillo salsa. And I read this last year. I grew some tomatillos to try this out, and I gotta tell you, there's a secret ingredient in this, and I'm going to share it with you. And be sure whenever you're following a recipe, always vary it to do whatever you want to do with it. But I'll show you how I've adapted this recipe, and it's one of the best salsas I have ever made. Now for this particular recipe, it calls for a really sharp knife. In fact, I'm going to be using 2 knives today. And I always like to get them totally sharp on the old, they call it a steel. Actually, I think this one is made out of ceramic. But you want to go a 45-degree angle, and then you'd go into about a 22.5-degree angle, and then down all the length of the blade. And the reason for this is because tomatillos are relatively hard to cut. You could use a food processor, but I don't use food processors. Here we start with some nice tomatillos. I think most of these are green. Last year I grew some purple ones that were kind of nice. So you see they kind of come with this paper wrapping on them, and you take off the paper wrapping, and once you do that, then you can put the paper wrappings into your container for the worms. There they all are now. They're completely peeled, but they still need to be rinsed. Tomatillos tend to have a little bit of a sticky substance on them, so it's always nice to rinse them. Okay, this is with my shun knife. Very nice blade, forged in the way the Japanese have traditionally made samurai swords, so that it's folded and hammered numerous times to give you the best possible edge. If you look on the side of these blades, you'll notice that you can see the lines, and that's where each layer of metal was folded and then hammered. 2 different types of metal together. Okay, so there we've got some nice basically coarse tomatillos. And there we have about a pound of nice fresh raw tomatillos, nicely chopped, about the consistency of hamburger relish. The next ingredient for this salsa is a nice onion. Now I like to use sweet onions. Peterson recommends using 3 medium-sized white onions, but I take the liberty of doing it my way. And the worms love all these parts of the onions that I don't eat. So they'll be getting some really good sweet onion husks and outer peels, and they just absolutely love that. Be sure to watch my video on growing worms and using worms to help make worm casings for your garden. And as with the tomatillos, we're going to slice these onions into a coarse mixture, again about the size of hamburger relish. And it's a little bit easier since the onion is so much bigger that we can then just go and have lots and lots of chopping done very efficiently here. And one more. And then with these, just give them a few more chops, just to make sure that we have the pieces the right size for this nice mixture that we're going to make. So our salsa is starting to take form here. You can see the onions and the tomatillos are mixing nicely together. And again, you could use purple tomatillos as well, but it seems the red onions give you a nice color as well. The next ingredient is garlic. Now Peterson calls for 4 cloves of regular garlic, But as you know, I am a great fan of elephant garlic. So look at that beautiful piece of elephant garlic there. My goodness, that guy is so huge. So 1 clove of this guy, maybe 2, because they're much milder than regular garlic. So we can peel them and see how nicely they have the husk just come right off. One thing that's so nice about elephant garlic is that it lasts so very long. And look at the size of that guy. Wow. So he's going to give us a whole bunch of elephant garlic. Give me a second here to get this cleaned up. The garlic also goes to the worms, who are great connoisseurs of garlic. And again, we're going to chop the elephant garlic coarsely and add it to the mixture. Oh, this stuff is so good. I think I've mentioned before that elephant garlic was the cause of the first strike in human history. The builders of the Egyptian pyramids used elephant garlic as a staple for soup. And when their overseers cut back the rations, they formed a strike until they got their rations back to where they had enough elephant garlic to give them the energy to build those pyramids. Thank you, elephant garlic. Now we have these wonderful pyramids we can go look at and think about. And elephant garlic, as I mentioned, is very mild, so you don't really worry if you have some larger chunks in it, because they just taste good. And again, look at how nicely this salsa is coming together. All these nice, fresh, raw veggies starting to take on a character of their own. Our next ingredient calls for the juice of a large lime or small lemon. So here you can see I'm going to put it in my candy dandy little lime press here, and we can show you how nicely that works. It just squashes all the juice out and doesn't put any seeds or anything else except nice fresh juice into the mixture. So there it is again. We have more of this lovely tastes coming together.